All right, welcome back to KP Unpacked. This is my opportunity to ask KP Reddy, the CEO and founder of KP Reddy Co., and also the founder of Shadow Ventures, one question. KP, when you posted that on LinkedIn, what were you thinking?
Sounds
This is
like
my
a
opportunity.
call from my mom. Like, what were you thinking? Jeez.
KP, this is your mom.
It's
This
your
is your
mom.
mother
What were
speak.
you thinking, son?
What were you thinking about? If we don't know each other, my name is Jeff Eccles. I'm a senior advisor at KP Reddy Company. I'm joined as always by KP Reddy, again, our CEO and founder, and also the founder of Shadow Ventures. And we do get together once a week to unpack one of KP's LinkedIn posts. And if you're not following KP on LinkedIn, you should be. My question to you is, why aren't you following KP on LinkedIn? Because he posts usually multiple times a day about what he's seeing, what he's observing, the conversations that he's having around the AEC world, the built environment world. Sometimes it has to do with investing. Sometimes it has to do with startups. Sometimes it has to do with business models, current business models, future business models. There's always something interesting. Sometimes he's just stirring the pot. But it's our opportunity to come here once a week and talk about those things. So KP, we've selected another topic, another post. I'll read it out. It's a pretty short post. I'll read it out, and then you and I can talk about it. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. So, as we're recording this, you posted this about 2 days ago. So, for those of you that are listening in a time shifted manner, probably from the year 2030, look back to about January 22nd, 2025 to find this particular post. Why are AEC firms' social media posts a steady stream of project wins and completions and staff hires or work anniversaries? Is this what your clients are looking for to make your phone ring? Is this for project lead generation, employee recruitment, or both? All right, I've got a lot of thoughts about this, but let's start with your thoughts.
Well, let's actually, before we start with my thoughts,
Okay.
were there any interesting comments in the comment section that we can call some people out on?
Okay.
Because this one did get a lot, some of my posts get less reactions and more comments, which I always find fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I just
Yeah.
kind of I usually react and then comment, but some people just comment.
Right. Right. These you have a good number of comments here. I mean, more than usual, as you're pointing out. Um, let's see. The There's one from Lucas Gray that says this is what happens when you mostly have architects or engineers leading the marketing of their firms. More firms should hire marketers with marketing backgrounds and educations. More firm leaders should trust their marketing team to craft better messaging. I know Lucas really well. We've worked together in the past.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
Go ahead.
so I think I think there's a foundational thing. Like he asked a question like, why don't they?
Hmm.
And I think there's some pervasive thing in our industry. We value our lack of if I'm a civil engineer and I don't have landscape architecture in house, I will hire out the specialization.
Sure.
If I am an architect and I need a lighting consultant, I hire out the specialization.
Okay.
So within our little circle of friends, so to speak, we have a high degree of respect for specialization
Right.
and the value that those people bring to the table where we have a gap. It
Sure.
does
Yeah.
not appear to be the same way when it comes to marketing and business development and sales. They are
This is true.
outside of this circle and we don't respect them.
Right.
We don't believe it's an actual profession.
I think there are some that have that point of view. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're really good at talking to clients and you play golf. You're business development.
Hmm.
Oh, you're really good at putting proposals together and you're really good at PowerPoint. So now you're our head of marketing.
Right.
Like it feels like that a lot.
Yes, I think it does. I think it does, and I think there are a couple of other fundamental things going on here as well. And the other is that I spent a number of years on the SMPS speaking circuit, so the marketing people, for the AEC firms. And one of the things I always wondered, maybe I was doing a workshop or maybe I was doing a keynote at a conference or something like that, you look around the room and you see the like the marketing coordinators.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, the marketing coordinators were because that is sort of the lowest marketing role, if you will, within the firm. Usually, those were usually early to mid 20 somethings. Maybe
Mhm.
24, 25, 26 years old, something like that. And I often wondered, by that time, having spent more than 30 years in the industry, I often wondered if those folks had come out of college, had graduated with a marketing degree, come out, found a job at an architecture firm, an engineering firm, wherever it was that they were, and maybe they thought, "Oh, this is exciting. Look at these cool projects that they do." And then realize that in these firms, the majority of marketing is reactionary. The majority of marketing that's done in these firms is responding, right, to an RFP
Mhm.
or an RFQ or something like that. So I think there's this fundamental issue in the industry where, how much marketing are we really doing? But then the other part of that, right, is this mentality that, I mean, you started in civil engineering, I started in architecture, neither one of us are doing either at this point. But there's this mentality that we're the experts and people hire us to be the experts, and they do.
Mhm.
But how many of those people that are hiring you to be an expert care about that latest project or care about that award that you've won or something like that versus the problem that you're helping them solve,
Mhm.
right? Are they
Yeah.
hiring you to win an award? Or are they hiring you to solve a problem?
Yeah, and I think in our own experience, right, we decided a couple years back that LinkedIn was our spot, right?
Right, right.
I do some stuff on Twitter. If you're in VC, you might follow me on Twitter, but outside of that, no one is engaging with me on Twitter. We decided that Twitter was not our place. So we stopped doing it.
Yeah.
I
You gave
wonder if
up on
some of these,
dancing on TikTok quite early, though.
yeah, that
I
too.
mean, you might have given that longer,
I
but
broke my hip. No, but I think so. If you think about that, right? If any of these AEC firms, if they stopped posting on LinkedIn for a year, would it actually have an economic impact to them?
I I think maybe not. And that brings up another really great point. When it comes to their marketing, and you call out specifically social media here, but let's
Mhm.
expand it further, right? We can their emails or their websites in particular. The majority of architecture, and I'm going to say this because I feel like, um, having spent a lot of time in the profession and having multiple degrees in the profession, I feel like I can um, gently throw architects under the bus because been there, done that. But the majority of the architectural websites out there, I believe, are designed for other architects. Look at what we've done,
Yeah,
right? And I think the same thing is happening in a lot of the other social media.
yeah,
Look at what we've done. We won this award. We finished this project. Fantastic. Is that what it goes back to that question. Is that what your clients actually care about? Or do they care about and value you and pay you for the solutions that you develop?
yeah. 100%, right? So here it's a good segue to one of our guest speakers this week, Mark Teixeira, former baseball player,
Right.
turned real estate
Fantastic
developer.
conversation.
Right,
Hmm.
great conversation. What did he
Yep.
told all our people in the mastermind group when he hires architects, engineers, contractors, what he's looking for is problem solvers.
Right.
He's not looking for all the other stuff, right? He's
Right.
looking for people, and he coached our group, right? He said,
Hmm.
become very good at solving problems, and you will do well in the industry. And
Yeah.
it's coming from everyone's customer, right? The real estate developer
Right.
saying, solve problems for me. Um, and so I think when you're selling expertise, there's a certain level where you graduate from, it's Art Gensler, you're hiring Art Gensler, right? It's Frank Gehry, you're hiring Frank Gehry. Uh, I think it then has to permeate like the broader team. And yes, experience is good proof points, but nowhere did they say, like, here were the top challenges we had at this project. Like, just
Right.
rip away the project profile and
Hmm.
just maybe distill it down to problems. And then for some reason, if a prospect is scrolling through, the feed, they go, oh, I have that problem,
Exactly.
right? I have that problem. I have this permitting problem. I have a site condition issue that sounds like these guys have solved it for me before.
Yep.
Then they might actually, like, I think I put the phone to ring in quotes because I don't know if phones actually ring anymore. But you know,
Fair enough.
but
Yeah.
but as I air quoted it, but I think that does get people engaged,
Hmm.
you know.
Well, yeah,
And these poor the
exactly.
poor the poor marketing people at these firms that are told, and you know what, they know better. I
Hmm.
think a lot of them know better. It's just like, well, the boss is telling me.
Right.
I thought it was fascinating. I always find this fascinating across industries. The Happy New Year's images that are put on LinkedIn and, all those things, right? I stopped sending those emails out. Happy holidays, Happy New Year emails, because you're sending them out in mass. They aren't that meaningful. Instead of doing that, I spend a few hours texting important people in my life and wishing them a Happy New Year. Seems more authentic and real, right? But no, they're told by their boss, like, you better happy holidays, everybody,
Hmm.
and so I think the why of, why are they doing this stuff? And I think it's partly because it's just activity, but I think it's mostly because there's a lack of strategy. Let's just keep doing the thing that we're doing.
Yeah. I don't. Maybe. Maybe it may be lack of strategy. I think it is at least flawed strategy.
Mhm,
Right. There's something that you just said that's super important. It's the I've solved this problem before.
mhm,
Right. And so I'm looking at somebody's marketing because if you're in professional services, it doesn't matter, architecture, engineering, an attorney, somebody like that. If I'm looking to hire a professional, I'm looking to hire a professional that has experience solving the problem that I have right now, right?
mhm,
That's what you were talking about a minute ago. And if and I used to, when I would be out on the speaking circuit and talking about commoditization and things like that, and consulting with firms on those kinds of topics, I would hear so many firms that would say, the our value proposition is the quality of our design, right? It's like an aesthetic
mhm,
thing, the quality of our design. Oh, really? I've never heard of you before, right?
mhm,
And I guess at that point, if we're again, I'm going to pick on the architects because that's my people. But
mhm,
if if you say the quality of our design, look at this project we just completed, right? In our social media, our website, or whatever, the quality of our design, right? That's our selling point. That's our value proposition. Then we start to get into the area of architects,
mhm,
right? How many people are actually being selected because of the quality of their design? The school board's not doing that, or very few school boards are doing that, right? And if they're actually going out and going, oh, who really does this versus knows how to design safe places for our children to learn, or whatever the things are, right? My argument against that is always, well, it's the quality of our design. Really, I don't know you. I haven't heard of you, right? If I'm a person that actually has a budget that actually has a mission that's met by the aesthetic, purely by the aesthetics, the design of this project. And I know some of the architects out there are going, well, that's not everything that quality of design is. It considers all the program and all that. Fine, I get it, right? I teach this stuff.
mhm,
but 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 what you're putting forward is, look at this pretty thing that we designed.
mhm,
Most of the people that are looking for pretty design things already know, hmm, I want Calatrava. Or
mhm,
when Zaha was still alive, I want Zaha. Maybe I still
mhm,
want ZHA. I want Gary. You mentioned Frank. They already have this short list of artists
Mhm.
basically, that are also going to be able to execute on the technical aspects of their projects. You need to be presenting more thought leadership
Mhm.
in your marketing than you do celebrating yourself. Every one of your clients is
Yes.
looking at your marketing, your social media, whatever it is, through the lens of what's in it for me.
Yeah. I've been involved with a few projects in my life,
Hmm.
and I quickly figured out when hiring an architect, I asked the contractors,
Sure.
like, who was responsive,
The
who
architects hated
had,
it when you said that, by the way.
yeah, who, like, what was the RFI process like? What was their response rate? How quickly, how clever were they when you had, unforeseen site conditions? How clever were the engineers in coming up with solutions in a timely manner? And so it's almost like, if I was going to architect, I was going to post like how great we are. Hey, here's some testimonials for contractors that have worked with us,
Sure.
right? About how responsive we are and how uh, their CD set, wish I saw a CD set like this all the time that made my life easier, like
Hmm.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you think your value prop is to turn it into that thing. But I think it's this very insular, it's like prestige posts, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Versus, I mean, a version of what you just said, right? Hey, by the way, we realize we don't work in an ivory tower. We're
Mhm.
really good teammates. Look what people that deliver the designs that we produce, look what they say about us,
Mhm.
because it's a collaborative process all the way through.
Yeah, I was doing this prep call yesterday for a webinar with one of our partners, CRE Tech. And one of the questions was, AI, 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 right? Everything's about AI. And someone brought up this point, and I said, look, let me tell you about AI. Let me tell you about remote work. The leadership that will not benefit from AI and remote work are the ones that find value into walking into their kingdom of cube farms and seeing all the minions that work for them and defining themselves about the size of their firm and their
Mm.
office space and their kingdom that they have created. If they derive value from that, AI is not going to matter to those people,
Right. That's a good
right?
point. Yeah.
And so I think some of this, this stuff around the projects, like who's it really for? It feels like the marketing department is just trying to make leadership feel good, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's this
Yeah.
great
They're patting
post.
themselves on the back.
Yeah. So I think it's foundationally with when it comes to strategy. And I think you and I have talked about this. All of a sudden everybody has a podcast.
Right.
Like we've stated before, we're the
Or
number
they're
one
they're
podcast.
launching. Yeah.
Right, we're the number one podcast in AEC. Look it up, everyone. And so we get hit up on these like, hey, how do you guys do podcasts? And I'm like,
Mhm.
you got to have something to say.
Right.
You can agree or disagree, but I've always got something to say. Um, and I think it's clearly part entertainment, but partly being informative. But so what are they going to do? Get launch these podcasts and talk about their latest project?
Yeah.
Interview their
Nobody's going to
latest
listen to that.
intern? Like
Right.
what is the content?
Right. Yeah.
You
I
know,
was
we'll
just,
con- we. I mean, I'm happy because we'll continue to be the number one podcast in AEC
yeah.
because they got nothing. They got
Right.
nothing to talk about.
Right. I was just consulting with one of those firms that you were talking about because we do help some of some of the people that are trying to start things, trying to launch things. Some of our partners, we consult with them. Maybe we help them launch. We have producer Ethan, who's by the time you're hearing this, he's already worked his magic, and he works his magic for some others as well. But that's what you're saying is exactly right. Right, the conversation goes, oh, well, what equipment do we need, and blah 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 blah. So, well, I can give you some equipment specs. It's going to be a lot lower and a lot less expensive than you expect, because yes, you need to have good audio quality, but you can get that in relatively inexpensive equipment. You need to have, if you're doing video, you need to have good lighting quality and good video
Mhm.
quality, if you want somebody to watch it. But at the end of the day, if you sound good and you look good, but you don't have a take, you don't have anything to say about anything, nobody's going to continue listening all the way through the episode, nor will they come back
Hmm.
for the next episode. So, spend $10,000 if you want on a studio, or $100,000 on a studio. Or there was a time where I was trying to build a mobile studio.
Hmm.
None of that matters if you don't have a take. And to your point, right, you can build the best studio and have the best equipment, and if all you do is the verbal or the video version of what you said here in your LinkedIn post, you're going to be selling that stuff on eBay or Marketplace or whatever within a couple of months.
Well, other than leadership, is like, hey, we've got a podcast. Like that's all they care about. We've got a
For what?
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, for what? Then I mean, so I think that's also. I think, SMPS has always just been a curious beast to me because, like, did it form to really improve how marketing is done in our industry, or did it form because AI and everybody else would not let them in? Like, was it a "I'm gonna take my ball and go home" thing, or
Yeah.
was it really because I think we have some friends at SMPS, but I think they're playing at a level that the industry's playing at versus really leading the industry to say,
Mm,
"Hey, how are you thinking about this?" And really developing people. And partly I wonder sometimes, if you took a good marketer at an architecture firm and they were really good, I don't know if they would stay at the architecture firm.
I think that depends on how much agency do they have, right?
Yeah.
To your point earlier, right? If you got a really good marketer that comes into an architecture firm, they start working there. If the leadership is ramming down their throat, hey, we're gonna boost our egos. Basically, we're gonna
Hmm.
talk about our projects. We're gonna talk about our hires, our latest acquisition, whatever, from the point of view of ego rather than what does this mean, how does this benefit our clients. No, I think that person is gone within a couple of months.
Hmm.
But I think if they have the agency to come in and say, you know what, everybody that listens to this podcast, or everybody that sees this social media post, or everybody that um, clicks on this on our website is going to be viewing this through the lens of what's in it for me. What does this mean for me? So we need to do these things, and that's allowed,
Hmm.
right? They can talk about the problems that they solve, and other things like that. They can produce thought leadership and things that matter to their client base. Then I think they stay. But you've got to break out of that mold. And I think to your question about SMPS, I think it's a little a bit of both. You certainly have people. Um, you certainly have people in the SMPS ecosystem that are I'm going to put this in quotes, pushing the envelope, because pushing the envelope in the AEC world is basically square in the middle of the envelope from 15 years ago in other industries. In 2014, I wrote an article that appeared on the AIA National website. It was the title was something like "How to Find Clients Using Social Media." This was cutting edge. This was the most
Now you're just bragging.
I am. This was the most read article on AIA National's website in the year it was published. And what I wrote in that article was so far behind the rest of the world, other industries in the world, that it was sort of laughable, right? I
Hmm.
couldn't even believe they wanted me to write that article, but it was to our industry, it was cutting edge.
Hmm.
But 5 years, which is a millennium in social media time, right? But it was 5 years at least behind the rest of the world. And I think that's one of the problems that we have, to your point, is we're driven so much by this is the way we've always done it, that doesn't allow us to push
Hmm.
envelopes in firms, and with their social media or the websites or other things.
Yeah, I think there's a part of my book where I talk about it's no longer about leading your company. It's about leading markets,
Mm,
right? It's about really
right.
leading industries. And I just think about some of the big opportunities that exist in our industry, whether it's data centers or whatever. If I was all this data center work and architecture firms are not benefiting because nobody cares. It's a big box,
Right.
right? So the first architecture firm that says, "Hey, we make data centers amazing," or our data centers get built faster, like whatever it is. Hey, Elon Musk built a data center in 19 weeks. We can do it in 18. Like this comes out with a bold position on how they can help with data centers, and they'd win all the work.
Hmm.
They'd win all the work.
Well, one of the things that we've been talking about, and if I go too far, we may have to ask producer Ethan to cut some of this out. But one of the things that we've been talking about is the opportunities around the fact that a hurricane flooded Asheville, that the state of California is burning down, and those are horrific things, right? That's
Mhm.
the impact on humans and their homes, and all kinds of things is horrific. But the opportunity for innovation is ripe, right?
Mhm.
Somebody's going to go in and hopefully somebody's going to go in and say there is a better way to build homes in California, whatever that means. So when things like that pop up, we have opportunities to
Yeah.
push those ideas, to push through that. Unfortunately, what's going to happen on a lot of fronts is the formation of committees.
So it's so funny. It's so funny you bring this up. So um, on Twitter, a post that went viral was from a guy named Chris Sacca.
Hmm.
So some people might know Chris Sacca. He did a stint on Shark Tank.
Yep.
He was the first general counsel at Facebook, made a bunch of money at Facebook. Um, he now runs a venture capital firm called Lower Carbon Capital, and lowercase capital, and he does a lot of climate investing. This is a lawyer. He's not an architect. He's not an engineer. He did a post where he did a video. It was an interview with Tim Ferriss,
Hmm.
right? And that's probably partly why it went viral.
Sure.
Um, and so if you don't know who Tim Ferriss is, then you probably shouldn't be in marketing. So
You should Google.
you should, yeah. But he basically goes on. It's like this aggressive rant about like, hey, in LA right now, if you want to get a expedited permit, you can do so if you build exactly what was there.
Yeah.
And he's like, we just saw a bunch of tinder boxes burned down.
Hmm.
So in order to get an expedited permit, you can only build what's there. So you're just going to build what just burned down? Like, this makes no sense. We should be thinking about concrete and aluminum flashing. This is a lawyer, for God's sake.
Hmm.
Wasn't an architect, wasn't an engineer, right? And he rants for like 30 minutes on this topic and it goes viral. And I look at it and go, cool, Chris Sacca, but like a little bit like, who are you? Yeah. Other than Tim Ferriss lets you run your mouth. That was such an amazing opportunity for leadership, right? So yes,
Right.
these are all terrible things that happen. But if you're selling expert services, then you need to develop an expert voice.
Experts lead.
Right. And so, like, even if you look at CNN and they're talking about the updates on the fire, I haven't seen an engineer, an architect, or a builder anywhere on TV. None. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I think it's just, I think, like many things in marketing, it's like you have to ask yourself, like, why? Like, why am I doing
Hmm.
this? And
Sure.
why
Yeah.
does it matter? And have a point of view. And I think partly too, the conservatism may kick in where, oh, I'm not comfortable having a point of view.
Right.
That could be part of it.
It could very well be. Talked last night for a few minutes with one of my former graduate students. She graduated, I guess, last May, so she's been out about a year. And I ran into her. How are things going? Where are you working? Those types of things. And I remember her project in my class. It's fascinating. she's really um, she's really interested in materials, building materials, research. Um, and she was asking me, "Hey, do you know anybody here? Do you know anybody there?" I need to find a place where I can do research and we can think of new ways to use materials and develop new materials and things like that. I said, "What are you doing on LinkedIn? Right?
Hmm.
What are you doing?" Even and she took this point of view, which is kind of part of her personality. And it's not that unusual for students or recent graduates. Like, oh, why would I talk about that on LinkedIn? Because somebody needs to.
Hmm.
And if you really want to get involved, if you really want to be noticed, you have to have a point of view and put it out there and talk about things that matter to the people that you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
And so in some sense, she's no different than a firm,
Hmm.
right? Have a point of view. Podcast, social media, website, whatever it is, have a point of view that's going to matter to the people, or maybe it stirs the pot with the people, or it
Hmm.
resonates with the people, whatever it is. Have a point of view that's going to get noticed by the people that you want to work with.
Hmm. Now, there's another thing I think about, like, now post reactions. It's a vanity metric. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean much of anything, right? Necessarily, it tells you a little bit, not a lot.
Right.
I find it fascinating when I see CEOs of AEC firms that manage 2,000, 5,000 person companies. And I look at their LinkedIn post and they have 48 reactions and like 5 comments. And it's like, you literally have an amazing network of employees. How are they not like, are you, one, why aren't you engaging with them in a different way to be involved in the social media strategies? And then two, like, if your own employees aren't interested in liking and commenting on your post, I'm not sure like who else is going to do it. It's like when Satya Nadella at Microsoft posts something on LinkedIn, he gets like a million whatevers, right? Uh, you know, all his employees are probably clicking on it because they know, right? They're tech forward people. They know, like,
Hmm.
they get the alert that their boss just posted something, they're liking it and commenting on it. And then all their customers are available. So I think it's fascinating when I see these big firms post something and they get like 10 reactions. It's like you have 2,000 employees and the best you got was 10 reactions. That just shows a lot of a lack of strategy.
A lack of strategy and a lack of engagement.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it is telling. I mean, I'm not of the opinion that employees should be required to like or comment on the boss's post necessarily, but if if there's such a disconnect, right, that they don't care. Right? Oh, we don't care enough about our firm's work that we're paying attention to it.
Mhm. I
Brian.
would say I would never mandate people to do something,
Yeah.
but I consider that career limiting behavior. It doesn't take a big effort,
No, it doesn't.
right? Click, right?
Yeah.
Take 5 minutes out of TikTok to like your boss's post, so to speak. Like,
To comment on your boss's dance.
oh, yeah, whatever. So I mean, I think, but it was interesting. I mean, I don't know if there's any other comments on that post that are
Mhm.
interesting, but it did get a lot of engagement, and there wasn't a lot of people like disagree. Like,
The-
so I'd say if you're a marketer out there and your boss makes you do this stuff, start asking them why.
yeah. Yeah. Perrin Olson, that this is more agreement, but Perrin Olson said that those posts are safe for AEC leaders. Most AEC marketers want to do much more, but are handcuffed by leadership, which is, you know, agreeing directly with what you said a few
Yeah.
minutes ago. Um, the there's one I was trying to find one. Ethan, you'll probably have to make a cut here, but the Jacob Edmund has a good comment too. This is sort of taking it out of house at this point, right? So we talk
Mhm.
about, okay, this is what our firm is posting. Are the employees liking or commenting on our post, right? In house. But Jacob Edmonds' comment is interesting, and I have absolutely seen this before a lot. He says, "Hey, now don't forget that commenting on and resharing their clients' project posts with 'we are happy to be a part of this project' is a thing."
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
Mhm.
Right? Yeah,
Were you
so,
happy? He
some
stayed
some
up
of
all
it's
night. He stayed up all night and got yelled at by the client. Are you happy?
yeah, yeah. Well, and some it's just so inauthentic as well,
Mhm.
right? That's not having a take. That's the definition of not having a take right there.
Right.
Right.
So I think our lesson on this episode is before you go ramp up a podcast, talk to Jeff. Like really, I think because people forget, like doing all this stuff, it's an investment. It's an investment of
Mhm.
time. I mean,
Oh,
it's
sure
not
it is.
so much, who cares about the equipment cost? That's minuscule, right? It's because I'll tell you, having us done this, and I'd say we're fairly successful since we're number one. That that it's all about repetition and consistency, and you really have to like stick with it, and that means it's a 1 year cycle, right?
Yeah,
It's not like, oh, we're going to do 3 episodes and see what happens. It's
right.
really more about we're going to do this every week for a year,
Hmm.
which is how you should think about it. And if you're unwilling, if you don't think you have enough content to talk about something every week for a year as your pilot, then you probably shouldn't do it.
If you don't think you have enough content to record something every week for a year, you're not trying very hard.
Yeah, you're not engaged. You're
You're
asleep
not.
at the wheel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we use your LinkedIn post as an example, right? And I think we've talked about this here on the podcast. I know we've talked about this, in other contexts, but you are most prolific in your posting when you're traveling and when you're talking to people, right? Because hey, this is a conversation I had. I ran into you may not share the name, but I ran into so and so and we talked about this and here's a takeaway. If you're not engaged in the world enough that you can come up with 52 topics and I don't love the idea of saying here are the 52 topics we're going to talk about this year. I don't like that, right? I
Mhm.
would prefer to be organic. We can come up with buckets and lots of different strategies. But if you can't come up with 52 topics over the course of the year, you are not engaging with your world.
Yeah. And also, by the way, if your social media engine's not interesting when you go to do your podcast, if nobody cares about the post you're posting right now, nobody's gonna care about your podcast.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point too. All the marketers out there can start hating on me, but I don't. You're not going to get any organic reach. You got to drive it. Um, and if, to your point, if you're posting on social media about whatever, and now you've produced a podcast episode and you're putting it out there, that's not magically going to drive a lot of listeners. Spotify, Apple, whoever's Audible, they're not going to organically drive a bunch of listeners to your new podcast. It's not happening.
No.
Um, so you got to have a take.
Yep.
You got to have something that's worth listening to or reading, and it's not your opinion doesn't matter, right? If your client or your listener or your reader or whoever it is not interested, then your stuff is not interesting.
Mhm.
All right. So you posted this on LinkedIn. It's interesting enough for us to talk about for half an hour.
It was interesting enough for people to comment on.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite a few comments on this one. A lot of engagement, which is fantastic. So it's it's kicked up a good conversation. The post reads like this: Why are AEC firms' social media posts a steady stream of project wins and completions at staff hires and work anniversaries? Is this what your clients are looking for to make your phone ring? Is this for project lead generation, employee recruitment, or both? Like that's a strategy question that we can get into another time, um, but there's a problem. Right? There's a problem in a lot of this marketing that's out there, in whatever form that it takes. If you are interested in topics like this, of course, KP and I sit down and talk about these things every week in these KP Unpacked episodes. We also have mastermind groups that we facilitate around all aspects of um, the operations and investment and innovation in AEC firms. And we have a in-person mastermind event coming up February
We do.
25th
We
in
do.
Phoenix, Arizona.
No, it's gonna be a good one. I think we're seeing these events really be engaging and interesting, and yeah, I just think it's I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna you go to these conferences and sit in front of a speaker, and half the time they're schlepping something.
Yeah,
Every speaker at Autodesk University is getting it's like whatever, who
yeah.
cares? So I think just being able to engage. I think you brought this up to me one time, like when you go to AIA and stuff like that,
Mhm.
it's not the sessions, it's the conversations in the hallway that
Absolutely.
matter. So I
Yeah,
think you're just one big hallway that we hang out in for a day.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you actually, we were talking about this in a team meeting today as we record this. You called it the anti-conference. Right? That's sort of what it is, right? It's not it's not education or CEUs. It is getting together and talking about the things that matter, right? If
Mhm.
you're an um, director of innovation, for instance, you're getting together with other people that have the same or similar titles and going, hey, what's your experience with this? How have you done this? What are
Mhm.
you facing? Right? It's those corridor or at the bar kind of conversations specifically about your work, about your firm, about the industry that are happening for a full day. And they're very valuable, and you've joked about this being the Illuminati of AEC. And I was thinking about that after the first time I heard you say that. I thought, well, yeah, I mean, the people that are currently members of our mastermind groups, they're innovation leaders or construction technology leaders. They are actually pushing the direction of innovation in the industry. Right? These are
Mhm.
the decision makers. They have the budgets. They make the decisions. They're building the teams. They're creating the directions, the strategies that firms around the world are following.
Yeah.
So, good place to get involved with that. And depending on where you are in the United States, Phoenix in February may sound really good to you right now.
It sounds really good to me right now. I'm in Atlanta. If you're
Yeah,
in Panama City and you're shoveling your driveway from the snow, Phoenix might be a good.
they're not shoveling their driveway. They don't have that kind of shovel. speaking, speaking from the Midwest, where it was 5 degrees when I got up this morning.
Yeah, you chose that life.
Every day.
Yep.
I have not driven away yet. I did. All right, KP, thanks for joining me today to unpack this again.
Absolutely.
If you're in an AEC firm and this resonates with you, why are AEC firms' social media posts so bad? There's more to the post, but you can find it. We've talked about it now for quite a while. Um, you better be following KP on LinkedIn. KP Reddy, Reddy, listening to the podcast, and a new feature that we have. We're not really calling them this, but we have podcast companions. We have an article publication that comes out for each one of these episodes. So go to kpready.co, and you can find those. You can subscribe there to get these delivered right to the companions delivered right to your inbox. Basically, more thought leadership, more thoughts around what KP and I come here to talk about every week. Producer Ethan puts those together. They're actually a really good read, and I think he does a great job of capturing what you and I talk about. So that's an exciting new feature around here. So Ethan, thanks for those. And for all of you out there, thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week with another episode of KP Unpacked. I'll be joined, as always, by KP Ready. Thanks, KP.
Thanks, Jeff.
See you next week.